Jack Harlan, a rugged 28-year-old miner from the dusty towns of California, had heard tales of gold veins running like rivers through the frozen veins of Alaska, and in the winter of 1880, he set out to claim his share. With a pack mule laden with supplies, dried jerky, hardtack biscuits, a woolen blanket, a pickaxe, and a Remington rifle, he bid farewell to the last outpost of civilization, a ramshackle trading post nestled in the shadow of towering pines. The air was crisp, biting at his cheeks like tiny needles, but the sky above was a clear, unforgiving blue, promising safe passage through the Yukon wilderness. Jack's boots crunched against the fresh snow as he trudged northward, his breath forming ghostly clouds that danced in the wind. He hummed an old folk tune to keep his spirits high, dreaming of the fortune that awaited him in the Klondike. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the endless white expanse, the wind began to whisper warnings. At first, it was subtle, a gentle swirl of snowflakes tickling his beard, but soon it grew into a howl, whipping up drifts that obscured the trail. Jack pulled his fur-lined coat tighter, glancing at his mule, which snorted uneasily. "Easy there, old boy," he muttered, patting the animal's flank. But the storm was relentless, building like a predator stalking its prey. Within hours, visibility dropped to mere feet, and the temperature plummeted, turning the world into a swirling vortex of white fury. Jack's heart raced as he realized the gravity of his situation. He was miles from any shelter, alone in the grip of nature's wrath. Desperation set in as the mule panicked, bolting into the blizzard with half his supplies still strapped to its back. Jack called out, his voice swallowed by the gale, but it was gone, leaving him with only what he could carry: a small knapsack of food, his rifle, and a hunting knife. He staggered forward, the snow now knee-deep, each step a battle against the freezing embrace. His fingers numbed inside his gloves, and frost nipped at his exposed skin. Remembering stories from veteran prospectors, Jack knew he couldn't outrun the storm. He had to outsmart it. Spotting a slight depression in the snowdrift, he dropped to his knees and began digging with his knife in bare hands, carving out a makeshift shelter, a snow cave that would shield him from the wind's fury. Inside the cave, the world outside muted to a distant roar. Jack huddled against the icy walls, his body heat slowly warming the confined space. He rationed a strip of jerky, chewing slowly to savor the saltiness that reminded him of home. The cave was cramped, barely enough room to sit upright, but it was life-saving. As darkness fell, he wrapped himself in his blanket, his mind racing with thoughts of survival: conserve energy, stay dry, avoid panic. The storm raged on, burying him deeper under layers of snow, but Jack clung to hope, whispering prayers into the cold void. Deep in the heart of the blizzard, Jack's snow cave became both prison and sanctuary, the wind's relentless assault testing every ounce of his resolve. Hours blurred into an eternity as he lay there, listening to the snow creak and shift above him, fearing a collapse that could entomb him forever. His body ached from the cold, muscles stiffening like iron in the sub-zero temperatures, but he forced himself to move, wiggling his toes, flexing his fingers to keep the blood flowing and ward off frostbite. The air inside grew stale, heavy with his own breath, yet it was warmer than the howling chaos outside. Memories flooded his mind to distract from the gnawing hunger. Childhood on a farm in the Sierra foothills, where winters were mild compared to this Arctic hell. His father's lessons on resilience: a man ain't beaten till he quits. The letter from his sweetheart, Eliza, tucked in his pocket, promising to wait for his return with gold in hand. He pulled out the crumpled paper, reading it by the faint light filtering through the snow. Her words, a lifeline in the darkness. But reality intruded as his stomach growled. His rations were dwindling, just a few biscuits and a handful of dried berries left. He melted snow in his mouth, drop by drop, to hydrate without chilling his core further, knowing that gulping it could lead to hypothermia. As midnight approached, the storm intensified, the wind screaming like a banshee, shaking the cave's walls. Jack's thoughts turned darker, visions of frozen corpses he'd heard about, prospectors claimed by the wild. Doubt crept in. Had he been a fool to chase dreams in this unforgiving land? To combat the despair, he inventoried his gear mentally. The rifle for hunting, if he survived the night, the knife for crafting tools, the blanket as insulation. He fashioned a small vent in the cave's roof with his knife, allowing fresh air to trickle in while preventing snow from pouring through. Sleep came in fits, haunted by dreams of warmth and light, only to awaken to the biting cold. Dawn brought no relief. The blizzard persisted, blanketing the landscape in even deeper snow. Jack emerged briefly from his cave, squinting against the whiteout, to assess his surroundings. The world was unrecognizable, trees bent under the weight of ice, no sign of the trail or his lost mule. He scavenged what he could, breaking off pine branches to reinforce his shelter, digging for any buried edibles, like frozen roots. Back inside, he ate sparingly, conserving his strength for the journey ahead. The isolation weighed heavily. No human voice, no companionship, just the endless symphony of wind and snow. Yet, in that solitude, Jack discovered an inner fortitude, a primal will to live that sharpened his senses and steeled his nerves. With the first hints of the storm's abatement, a pale light piercing the gloom, Jack mustered his courage to venture out from his snowbound refuge, knowing that staying put meant certain death from starvation or exposure. The wind had eased to a whisper, but the snow lay thick, transforming the terrain into a treacherous maze of drifts and hidden crevasses. He packed his meager belongings, the rifle slung over his shoulder, knife at his belt, the last crumbs of food in his pockets, and oriented himself southward, toward the faint memory of a river that led to a remote trapping cabin. Each step sank him waist-deep, exhausting him quickly, but he pressed on, using a broken branch as a walking stick to probe for solid ground. The journey was fraught with peril. At one point, his foot plunged into a hidden crack, twisting his ankle with a sharp pain that made him gasp. He paused, leaning against a snow-covered boulder to bind the injury with strips torn from his shirt, biting back tears of frustration. Hunger clawed at him, his vision blurring from fatigue, but he spotted tracks rabbit prints weaving through the snow. With trembling hands, he loaded his rifle, steadying his aim despite the cold seeping into his bones. The shot echoed across the silent wilderness, felling the small creature. Jack skinned it hastily, eating the raw meat for sustenance, its warmth revitalizing him momentarily. As the sun climbed higher, melting the surface snow into a slick crust, Jack pushed forward, his mind fixed on survival strategies. Follow the downward slope toward water, avoid open areas where avalanches lurked, signal for help if possible. He fashioned snowshoes from branches and twine scavenged from his pack, improving his mobility across the vast white sea. Hours passed, the landscape unchanging, testing his endurance to its limits. Doubt returned would he freeze before finding aid? But then, a thin column of smoke rose on the horizon, a beacon of hope amid the desolation. Drawing nearer, his heart pounding with anticipation, Jack approached the source, a weathered log cabin, smoke curling from its chimney like a welcoming hand. He pounded on the door with frozen fists, collapsing as it swung open to reveal an old trapper, grizzled and surprised. "By God, lad, you look like death warmed over," the man grumbled, pulling Jack inside to the warmth of a roaring fire. He offered hot broth, bandages for the ankle, and tailies of his own brushes with the wild. Jack recounted his ordeal, the lost mule, the cave, the endless night, grateful for the simple luxuries of shelter and company. In the days that followed, Jack reflected on his narrow escape. The blizzard had claimed many, but his wits, preparation, and sheer tenacity had seen him through. He returned to the trading post, eventually, wiser and humbler, with stories instead of gold. The experience forged him anew, a testament to human resilience in the face of nature's fury.